All right. Welcome to Byzantine Music Zero, my Greeks and barbarians. Let's see if this is our maiden voyage. So let's make sure that I can be heard. I'm not sure if everything got uploaded as well as this one will. I think. The Western music one seemed to have a couple of dropped mic sections, so I'll probably just re-upload it and all that. Everyone hear me? Right now I'm actually going to be streaming this at a lower frame rate, so hopefully that'll fix some of the issues. Let's see here. Great. Thanks, Vicky. Well, let's get started. This one is actually all custom slides made just for you all, not using musictheory.net. For Western music, musictheory.net, I've been using it for probably 15 years now. They're free lessons. You can buy the app if you want. I've tried to send the guy money. He won't take any. So if you want to support him, buy his app. It's so good. You basically get a college level theory for free if you just follow all the lessons. We're not going to go through all of them off that website. We're going to go through about half. But for now, we're going to go through and do Byzantine music now. Or Byzantine, or Byzantine, however you want to say it. And we're going to kind of work this in tandem with the Western music, so that if you follow the Western music, you should be able to get most of what's going on here. So let's go. The topics for today are going to be basic elements, solfege, isonchironomy, modal organization, and isokratimata by mode. So let's talk about the basic elements of biz music. It has melody, as written in Greek, melos, and has ison or isokratima. This is the accompaniment underneath the voice, the melody. This is a very important element of biz music, because if you don't have it, you can go out of tune, and in general, the aesthetic doesn't feel quite as full. If you're a bass, this is really one of the most valuable skills that you can have. So if you're a bass and you're not too comfortable singing high melodies, get on that isokratima. We call it soda machine down here in New Orleans, and you show up and you know how to do what I'm going to show you this week. If you show up at the Analogio and you give good isokratima, they're never going to kick you off. They're going to want you there every week. So this is kind of like an example of a biz score with Western music on top. You'll notice that we have all kinds of flats that we didn't see in the Western music thing. Don't worry about that for now. It's for a much later date in your studies. So this is in second mode, so let's pull out our handy dandy piano. Let's see if it works this time. So the melody here would be Kyria. And I've written it in Western with kind of, I'm trying to put a little bit of ornamentation. This reads dry, whether you're reading it with a specific ornamentation style or not. It looks the same way in the staff. These notes correspond exactly to these. And then your ison would be an octave lower. This is second mode, and there's a reason for that, and we'll get into it later. So that's the two basic elements of biz music. So now we have solfege. So this is the solfege of biz music. It's ba, vu, ga, di, ke, zo, ni. So, ba, vu, ga, di, ke, zo, ni, pa. Right? That's all of them. Now I'm sure you're probably looking at this and going, "Oh my gosh, what I get myself into? I can't do this. I gotta make dinner. I can't do this today." Well, we're not going to teach you this way. This is not right. We're going to do it a little bit easier. So we're going to use the typical scale because, as you notice, ba, vu, ga, di, ke, zo, ni, pa. If you're a more advanced musician, you know that that's not a major scale, that's a Dorian scale. So in an effort to kind of make it very relatable, almost everybody who teaches this genre of music goes from one solfege note before. So you have, instead of going ba, vu, ga, di, ke, zo, ni, pa, you go ni, pa, vu, ga, di, ke, zo, ni. Makes a lot more sense, doesn't it? So these are the symbols that you'll see in a biz chant score that correspond to the solfege notes of biz music. The names of the notes are written down here. Ni, ba, vu, ga, di, ke, zo, ni. I've transliterated it for you because I care about you. And down here we have what you might see if it's an isokratima marking, which we'll get into in a second. So, they correspond to do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, or si, do, just depending on where you're from. Americans will say ti, Europeans will say si. So this way it all kind of corresponds to the do, re, mi that almost anybody can do with or without any music education. And this corresponds, or we have kind of decided to standardize that do, when we score this music, will be C. So ni, do, and si are all the same. Ba, re, di are all the same. Vu, mi, i, ra, fa, f, di, sol, g, ke, la, a, ti or si, zo, ti or si, b, and then we're back to ni, do, si. So singing the scale down from bottom to top, we get ni, pa, vu, ga, di, ke, zo, ni. I've been showing my guys at the Analogio to do this with do, re, mi, but from now on we're going to switch to ni, pa, vu so that we know what's what. And as you can see here, I've just written it in staff notation so you see what it looks like. So ni, pa, vu, ga, di, ke, zo, ni, as it relates to Western music. Luckily, we have a scale that's similar to something in Western music. So here's our Ison chirotomy. What a lot of people seem to be doing, and this was created by the Romego's ensemble by Mr. Bilalis, there's a set of hand signs to tell your Isokrates what note they should hold. Makes it a lot easier so you don't have to stop what you're doing and sing the note and then they sing it as well. Of course you can do that still, but it just kind of disrupts the flow of whatever you're singing. So there's a set of signs. For lo, ni, or si, or do, it's a fist. Then it's one finger for every note above that. So it's one finger for pa, two fingers for vu, and then so on. 3 for ga, 4 for di, 5 for ke, and then a thumb for zo. And then if you want to do a high ni, you just gesture high. So when you see me making all these weird gang signs at the analogio, it's because I'm kind of showing the guys where they want to hold their isokratima. So now let's talk about the modes and how they're organized. So the modes are 8 in number, and they follow something called the octoicos, which is kind of an organization of all the hymns into 8 nice little compartmentalized entities. You have 4 regular modes, modes 1, 2, 3, 4, and 4 plagal modes, mode plagal 1, plagal 2, plagal 3, plagal 4. You have a thing called an apihima. In plural, it's apihimata. I know it's kind of a long word, but it basically is a intonation that gets you into the mode. You've probably heard a lot of chanters say that kind of thing. And you have 3 basic speeds. You have irmologic, sticharic, and papatic. Irmologic is your fast apolitikia, where you are just getting through it. Something like, for example, Christos Anesti, which has actually 2 speeds. You would have Christos Anesti in the sticharic, which is basically what we all sing. But then you have a faster one, which goes a little something like this. Christos anesti ek nekron thanato, thanaton patisos, getis endis nimasis in charis amenos. So that's irmologic. Sticharic, Christos anesti ek nekron, blah, blah, blah. You get the idea. That's the sticharic genre. And then papatic is what you'll hear for a lot of like long cherubic hymns. That kind of thing, where one syllable can go on for minutes and minutes, forever. You'll hear it also sometimes when there's a big dynamis for like an agios o theos or something else. And the modes do change according to speed. There are rules for each mode and each speed. So really, it's not just 8 modes. It's 8 modes times 3, 24, plus probably another 3,000 exceptions. So as you can tell, it's very clearly and efficiently organized. Welcome to the chaos. So we're just going to go through some of the isokratimata by each mode. So that way, when you go up to the analogio and somebody does one of these intonations, you know exactly what ison to sing. It's not necessarily the only way that this can be done. This is just one method, but it's pretty typical, and you should be able to accompany any chanter anywhere you like with this knowledge. So enjoy. I'm just going to go through all 8 modes. So this is first mode. First mode, don't pay too much attention to this key signature, but first mode is basically kind of like a D minor. So you get out your handy dandy piano, you get your D, and this is a C to a D. Ananes. That's your apihima for first mode. It's ananes. Ananes. And as you can see, the isokratima is also pa, which is the same note as D. So when you hear somebody say this, they're going to say ananes at varying tempos and pitches, but we're just going to use D for now to be nice to each other. And you're going to want to hold D. So let's say you do a doxa So let's say you do this one in first mode. No, no, no. So you would hold this D while the melodist goes doxa patrike I know the piano's kind of loud, but I'd rather you hear the Isokratima louder than the melody. Moving on, we're going to go by each mode and their plegos. So, plego first is pretty much the same scale as first mode. It's D minor, but it has different melodic characteristics. You'll see how that works when we sing through the doxa. You'll notice that first mode was a little bit lower in the scale, and plego first is a little bit higher. We'll get into the specifics on that later. So, the apihima is aneanes. Anes. Right? Easy peasy. So it's not ananes, it's aneanes. You'll notice a pattern as we go through all this. So, just as before, if somebody sings the doxa, they would go, anes, and they'll be giving you what? One finger, by the way, for ba, because it's one up from ni. Ba is re, is D. So you'll see if somebody knows the chironomy in your church, they'll give you this finger, single finger. Anes. And you would hear the melody. One of the things you'll hear in plego first is they'll do a lot of the same melodies up a fifth. That's one of the characteristics of plego first. Just as a little aside for you. Now let's go to second mode. Second mode is a chromatic mode. It's called soft chromatic. And it's centered around the note G. So C, D, E, F, G. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, ni, ba, vu, ga, di. So we'll have 4 fingers being held by whoever, if they know the chironomy. And they'll probably go like this. So you do the lower octave G. I'm not very good. I don't have a very good G. So the apihima is it's a little sharp. So it's not quite or it's right in between. Don't worry about it for now. You can just sing it like it's white keys. And then the Isokrates would hold. The reason why it's an octave low on second mode is that this mode dips below the bass, which is G, so often that it just makes more sense and it clashes less to have the Isokrates be down an octave. So, any questions so far? I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention to the live chat here. Let's see here. So far, nothing. Good. Great. So, so the melody would go. that's kind of how that mode sounds. So kind of like Fosilaron. That's a typical melody you would know, that second mode. It's one of my favorite modes, but you really have to kind of unlock the beauty of it by singing it often. It takes a little bit of practice. So we'll go with the plagal of the second mode, which is also chromatic, but it's hard chromatic. Soft chromatic is basically the same kind of scale as a chromatic scale, except it's not so deliberately flat or sharp. So you might have noticed I was singing something kind of like, right? But it's not exactly. It's a little bit in between. Right? It's gives the feeling of chromaticism, but it's not as explicit. That's why they call it soft chromatic. It's softly tuned. It's not tuned very strict. Hard chromatic, it's actually even closer than that. But we'll get into that later about how these modes are actually tuned. For right now, that's close enough to put it a half step apart. Nobody's going to be too angry at you for not being very hard. It's like, I heard it was chromatic, it's not that hard. I mean, what's he doing? He's going soft on us with this. Now, it doesn't need to be super perfect for a beginner. The bass of plagal second mode is back down on ba. Do, re, mi, ba, si, d. So that's, as we know, this note below the staff. G, F, E, D. Remember, this is your G right here. This little, the clef puts a circle around the G line. So that's G, F, E, D. And your apígima is neheanes. So remember how we had neanes, nones for second mode. For plagal second mode, it's neheanes. So that is your plagal second intonation, apígima. And as you can see, the bass is generally low ba. There are changes in the isokratimata on all of these modes, but we want to just give you a little at a time. So just get the basic bass of each one, and I think whoever you're working with will be pretty happy. So let's say your guy's giving you your apígima. So the ison will play on the piano, and then your melodies would go like this. That's it. So this is you've probably heard that mode many times and thought about it because it's the most exotic. Most people tend to gravitate to this mode first because it kind of gives you the exoticism of biz music, and it's also fairly easy to sing correct. Now we have third mode. Oh, good old third mode. This is diatonic, hard diatonic, which means, look, regular flat. It's perfect. It fits with the piano perfectly. So enjoy your vacation from microtonalism until fourth mode. Mwahaha. So this is F. F major. Here's our G. Remember this G line? One down from G is that space. F. C, D, E, F. 3 fingers. So you'll hear The apikima, which is na na, na na. So you'll hear that na na. Right? Third mode has quite a few changes in isokratima. It's ra, ba, ni. Those are the usual three that you have to kind of go back and forth with. So, for example, we can take a look at this next doxa. And depending on who you work with, you will either hear only ra and pa in something like this, as this is written, but sometimes you'll also hear a low ni. Now remember, ni is C, pa is D, ra is F. So you have F, D, C. So you would be like, no, no. So sometimes you would hear this, no, lo, so, like that. Lo, so, po, tri. Here, as you can see, it's written, it's just a ra. So, lo, so, po, tri. But you would hear lo, fist, lo, so, po. Some chanters like to do that as well. So this whole mode sounds like this. Well, let's use the lo ni just so you can get a feel for all three isokratima. No, no, lo, so, po, tri, ke, yo, ke, so see how it ends on pa. Even though the bass is ra, it ended. A lot of the phrases end on pa in third mode. Let's go to plagal third, also known as grave mode. However, the one that I'm going to teach you today is not the real grave mode. This is what a lot of us will just call plagal third, because it's also F major. I can give you a quick taste afterwards of what real grave mode sounds like, but it's a little bit weird, and I would probably take private lessons with somebody to get good at the grave mode on what's called zo. Anyway, we're going to do plagal third grave mode on ra. So again, F, ra, fa. The apikima is honest. Basically the same three isokratimata, da, 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 ra, pa, ni, but more seldomly the pa. It's more ra, ni, and you hold ni for most of the time. You'll see that here. Here's a doxa. Honest, doxa, po, tri, ke, yo, ke, yo, pneumati. See that? So you're just no. That's most of what you're going to hear. Sometimes you'll hear no, but most of what you're going to hear is and sometimes usually followed with right? So that is plagal third, also known as grave mode. Grave mode as it should be done. So that's, the bass is actually zo. And the melody is kind of do something like it's very, very different mode. So as you can see, and it has a lot of notes that kind of change tunings when you pass through. So the mode is a little bit more difficult to execute. So I leave it. You don't need to. You barely ever have to do it. So, you barely ever have to actually do it. Now let's do fourth mode and play go fourth. Fourth mode is kind of one of the more common ear melodic modes you hear pretty often. Bass is on vu, and it's either on vu, or ba. So we'll give you some examples. And this is microtonal as well, as you can see with these backwards flats, but you could just sing them like white keys, and you'll be close enough for now. Legetos, right? And so you hear that quite often. Legetos, legetos, and then you hold the note. And your isokratimata for this is pretty much vu, i, vu, mi, and di, ba, re, right? Vu. And it's kind of like, if you want to be a theorist about it, it's kind of like a Phrygian, but it's also kind of like a Locrian, because depending on where you are, it'll either be Phrygian or Locrian. Na, 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 na. There's your Phrygian. G, F, A, B, C, B flat, and then it becomes a Locrian. Na, na, with the tritone. It's a little bit more advanced theory, but just thought I'd let you know it gets somewhere in there. You'll typically hear this quite a lot in Lent, because you have anexosomamu. See that? So it has these kind of middle cadences that go down to da da ba. So whenever you hear somebody sing legetos, if they're doing this, keep an eye on their hand, because there's quite a few changes. There's another flavor of fourth mode that we have to talk about, which is aihya. And you're gonna think, well, doesn't this sound just like first mode? And you're not wrong, but it's the opposite of what we were just talking about, where it's vu, ba. This mode likes to be around ba most of the time, and then we'll also have phrases in vu. And depending on what century the score is from, the music might end on any number of notes, but it will typically end either on ba or vu. Sometimes it'll end on di, though. I've seen that. Anyway, so the apihima, however, for this one is on ba. But watch what happens. You see it goes immediately right up to vu. So let's hear how this sounds. sorry, I sang it wrong. So this says melos. It's very neatly written there. They just mean they want you to follow the melody there. When I conduct, I'll typically actually go, do the signs instead of saying do melody. And then you have plagal fourth, and look at this. We're back to where we started. We were learning. Right? That's what we learned at the beginning. And that's ni to ni. The base of plagal fourth mode is ni. It's C major, all the white keys. Not exactly, because we got those backwards flats, but for now, just sing it with all the white keys. And the apikima is neahia. So you might have noticed all the four modes and all of the plagal modes have similar names, but the plagal modes have apikimata with ne in them. So ananes, aneanes, neanes, neheanes, na, aanes, and then ahia, neahia. So that's the apikima, the intonation for plagal fourth. As you can see also, I've written what you will typically see above a score that's in each mode. Didn't really talk about it, but that's what you'll see on the score. It'll usually show something like that. Or it'll say this word, hijos, which is kind of how we're translating into the word mode. And then it'll say actually alpha, beta, gamma, delta, just Greek numerals, or this little PL, B, lambda, which stands for plagios, plagal. It's one of the few things that we have as a cognate in this music genre. Anyway, the intonation, the apikima is So, if you were going to hold Isokratima here, the singer would go and hold a fist, and then the piano will be my Isokratis for today. Different things that happen here. Typically, plagal fourth in this genre, sticker arc, that's what all these doxas are. They're sticker arc genre, not etymologic. We'll have a phrase that ends on ba. So you'll be like, let's say you're doing your penultimate phrase will be something like that. And that's all of the 8 modes in a nutshell. There's a lot more flavors of each one of these modes. There's plagal fourth that's up on which you know as the hymn of our church. So that's actually F major, but also with this soft diatonic tuning that plagal fourth has. So it's similar to something like third or plagal third, but it's classified as plagal fourth. But that's for much later in your studies to be chanted. So that's all of them. I want to just go over all of the symbols here. I'm not a pro at knowing why all of these symbols are called what they are, but basically, what this stands for is mode, 1, your bass, so in this case it's ba, and the tuning phthora. This is the actual little mode signature that'll tell you how to tune your scale. So, moving from there, play go first. You see we have the B lambda, right? And that stands for plagios. So you have mode, plego, 1, ba. Same little phthora for the tuning. Mode, this means 2, kind of. This little symbol here is the soft chromatic symbol. Kind of makes it, or mode for 2. Ask somebody who knows more than me. I just know that it means 2. You'll usually see this. Or you'll see hijos and then vita written. In the bass, the, ni, pa, fu, ga, the, C, D, E, F, G. And then this is the tuning symbol for soft chromatic, which is a circle with a half curved line. You'll see that it turns into a fully double curved line when it's hard chromatic. And so you'll see here you have plagios, so hijos, plagios, 2, ba, hard chromatic. Or you'll see hijos, plagios, and then vita. Moving right along. Now we have third mode. It'll be a lot of these kinds of symbols. Sometimes third mode has a lot of different ways of being written, but I see this most of the time. So it'll either look like this, or it'll say hijos gamma, which is the Greek numeral for 3. So mode, 3, ga is your bass. That's the symbol that says what the tuning is off of ga. And then, grave mode, they will use this symbol for grave mode, even if it's not the one that I demonstrated on lo, zo. This one's on ga. So, mode, grave, ga, and the tuning for ga. Hard diatonic, F major. And then now we have 2 flavors of mode 4, like we discussed before. This usually means 4, so mode 4, mode 4. This symbol actually means go down 2 degrees. So, there's probably a better way to describe this, but this is just letting you know that it's being transposed to vu. This is a typical legatos, and this is the phthora for, that's the tuning symbol for legatos on there. But all you need to know is basically that this means 4th mode legatos. Or mode 4 ba. And that's how you get your second flavor, which is called aikia for the intonation. And then play go 4th mode plagios, as we see again with the B lambda, symbol for 4. Ni is your bass, and then that's your symbol for the tuning for play go 4th on ni. You made it. So, next week we're going to take a look at the beginnings of notation. We're going to work almost exclusively just in play go 4th, so that we can kind of just have a scale that we can handle without too much effort. And we'll start going through the very basics of reading the notation. So look this over a couple of times this week so you can get your isokratima on the right spot. And let's get going. So if you have any questions, leave them down in the comments right now and we'll get to them. Q&A. Any questions? Well, I'm going to let you go for now. If you get any questions or if you're watching this later, now that it's not live, go ahead and write a comment in and we'll address it next week if you write it in the comments on this video. Have fun, and for my guys down here in NOLA, we'll see you at 4:45. Sorry. Thanks. See you next time.